guess what my favorite adaptation of Jane Eyre ever is?
Now that I've heard these other ones, I cannot imagine what your number one could be.
I wonder, maybe it's the same thing that made me obsessed with this in the first place, that I can't stop thinking about no matter what. It's the 1983 miniseries, with Timothy Dalton, obviously.
Of course it is.
Well, hello there, everybody, in person and also recorded, and also just our voices talking to you through your headphones. Hi.
Hi. Did you say and also in person?
Well, I don't know. If you're looking at your video screen right now and seeing our lovely faces, it could feel like we're in person.
Yeah, we're in our hearts. You're here. So I guess it all works out.
Yeah.
Hello, listeners and viewers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Airbuds. Since we have video today and it's a moody, gloomy day, I'm going to light a candle here just to set my mood so I could be ready to talk about this very exciting, thrilling conversation we're about to have.
And for Piper's reoccurring when we record for the Patreon bit, she was much more successful in lighting the candle this time.
I was. Well, I actually have a box of matches because before I have those kind where you flip it over, you have to like rip it through, and usually, more often than not, the match just breaks in half and doesn't do anything. So we've upped our game. We have a few patrons, so I can afford a box of matches. It's amazing.
Because before she would put in a requisition and request that the show purchase her matches, and I would say a hard no.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm like, can I get reimbursed for these? And you're like, haha, don't come to me with stupid questions.
Well, on that super great note, we have been doing this for quite some time, Piper.
Mm-hmm.
And for the very first time, I would like to confront you on the podcast about a violation of my trust that happened not 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, go for it.
So listeners, you know, because we talk about it on the podcast a lot, that Piper and I try very hard not to spoil our opinions so that you can get our hottest, freshest takes and hear our reaction to each other's takes. Today, I was updating my notes and I was in a Google Doc and I saw a little face pop up and it was none other than Peak Levy. Peak Levy was in my notes for today's episode. Explain yourself.
So when we were agreeing on what our topics would be that we were going to be discussing today, I was at a cafe with no notepad near me to write down what we decided. So a good classic 10 minutes before it's time to record, and I'm furiously jotting my notes down last minute, and I message Lillian, and I'm like, what were your two topics again? No response, and I'm like, oh, I can just go into her notes, because surely Lillian has written it down, and I can just take the topics. And I did, and you're like, get out of my notes! And I'm like, answer my questions.
There's spoilers in here, because we're doing a Rochester Retrospective Part 2, which last year we did this when we had watched 10 real adaptations of Jane Eyre, and we wanted to revisit them and re-rank them and kind of start fresh. And that was a year ago, the week that this comes out, which is a time in the future. And so we agreed to do it. We figured out our stuff, and my notes have what my winners are. So I was very concerned, but she was only in there for a little bit, and then she very respectfully left after I caught her red-handed and went, what are you doing in here?
Now, Lillian, when I know when someone pops into a Google Doc, it usually assigns them a different animal avatar, like anonymous aardvark or something. Do you happen to remember what I got to be?
It didn't do that because it does anonymous aardvark when you aren't logged into your Google, and it just said Piper Cleveland.
See, then I could have maybe been sneaky, and I'd be like, who is that aardvark? It's not
I would have
me.
had a lot more like, who has access to the Airbuds folder?
But yeah, so I did not look at Lillian's answers. I swear to God, I was just simply like doing a quick scan for the subheads. So I have no idea what your answers are going to be, but I'm very excited to discuss them with you.
Well, and you also don't have my recap of all of our adaptations that we've watched, because it's a like big reflective episode, guys. It wouldn't be a good episode if Lillian didn't come with a bunch of really boring fun facts at the beginning.
Oh boy.
So last time we did this, we had watched 10, we defined it as like 10 true adaptions, because we had watched like the Star Trek Jane Eyre episode and stuff, and we didn't count that. This total count, I am including everything, whether we're able to see a full adaptation of it or just listen to a soundtrack or whatever, it all counts in this total. So the total number that we have, last time I said it was 35. I had miscounted that. It's 37.
Hey, look at us go.
I know. And if you are interested in what all of those are, we have a page on our website that's Jane Eyre Adaptations. And it has all of our adaptations and links to the episodes, and you can go look at those. That's what I sent to Piper to be like, hey, in case you, I don't know, don't remember everything we've watched in the last year and a half, you can find them all here. And of that, so rather than read all of them off, I'm going to just go by category as quickly as possible. We have watched 6 movies, 4 TV shows, 4 TV movies, 4 radio adaptations, 4 books, 3 skits, 3 musicals, 3 different fan fictions, 2 plays, an opera, a ballet, and a web series.
I am so proud of us. Look at us go. Woohoo! Killing it.
It is one of the things that comes up a lot when I mention to people casually that I have a Jane Eyre podcast. They're like, I've seen all the Jane Eyre adaptation. I was like, no, you haven't. And sometimes people will boldly be like, no, I definitely have. And I was like, okay, I've seen 37. How many have you seen?
Just like do a little flex and make them feel awkward and sad, because how dare they imply that they're even close.
I have this one thing that I can flex on. I don't have many skills, but I've seen 37 Jane Eyre adaptations.
Once this beautiful podcast eventually comes to a blissful conclusion, we will have such a number to use when it comes time for 2 truths and a lie. We'll kick butt with that one. It's going to be great.
It's going to be so good. We just have to make sure nobody knows about the podcast when we're playing that game.
There you go.
All right, so we have 4 categories that we're going to go through. We have not picked the order that we're going to go through them in. Do we want to keep them a little secret for us until we reveal each category?
I think let's just talk about the categories up front, because then people have a fun anticipation of what gets to come later on. So in case you're like,
suspense.
Yeah, it's like, this topic isn't really thrilling me, but I want to hear that one. So you got to stick around. Perfect. It's like, me and my family, we are big Oscar fans. We love watching the Academy Awards. And so it's like, there's some things where it's like when the best international short film comes up, I'm like, okay, I can go to the bathroom now. I can go get some snacks. But, I have to be there for the best director, all of that stuff. I need those ones. So
Piper, why don't you watch every international film that's nominated for an Oscar every year?
Well, I hardly get around to watching all the best picture noms. So it's just a lot. I really should do that. When I'm retired, I'll watch every single Oscar nominated thing ever. That'll be my next podcast.
Watches every Oscar nominated movie every year. It's her big thing. Not even every small, but she does they have a couple places that'll play all the shorts, like the animated shorts and the international shorts and the documentary shorts. She goes and watches all of those at different art house theaters in the Twin Cities.
That's so cool. Yeah. My uncle is a member in the Academy, so they mail him. I know it sounds like it's extremely prestigious, but I think it's actually not that hard to become part of this group.
I think it is very hard to become part of the group that votes for the Academy.
Maybe. I haven't really asked him details about it, but I should. I mean, he was him and his wife, my aunt, they were both journalists for their entire careers. And so that might be part of it. But yeah, so whenever Oscar season is coming up, throughout the year, they will mail him little DVDs or Blu-ray. I think it's DVDs. I don't think they've switched to Blu-rays yet, but he gets every single one, and he just watches them and then goes and adds a little vote and stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then he hands them out.
It's very much a big deal. I need to know how your uncle became. I don't know. It's just a thing. You know how everybody's uncle's a person in the Academy? I'm like, no, I don't.
And again, this might be something I need to fact check. So at my next family outing, I might come back to Airbuds and be like, actually, I got this way wrong. It's a slipper moment.
Real facts. It's a real slipper moment.
It's a real slipper moment, ladies and gentlemen.
Only our OG fans know that one. Go back and listen to every single episode to get that reference.
Absolutely. Okay. So my topics that I came up with, because our last ones were kind of like Oscar style, a bit more kind of classic, I think it was like best like Jane, best Rochester, best proposal and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when I was kind of noodling about what I want to compare this time around, I wanted to talk about some like really fun and like goofy things. Mm-hmm. So where last time we did the Oscars, this time, at least my category, it's more of the Razzies. Yes. So I've got a category that I'm calling So You Think You Can Drag. And this will be talking about our favorite fortune teller scenes in which they were actually brave enough to put a man in a wig.
Yeah, I personally didn't even count the ones where it's like, and this lady's a fortune teller and she's here to tell you. It's like, no. Dress up like the fortune teller or don't do it at all.
Exactly.
It has an upsettingly racist history. It frankly is a weird choice to make at all. It is the most bizarre thing that Rochester does, including locking his wife in the attic. Mm-hmm. You either do it or you don't.
Yes, you got to commit. So we're ranking those. We're talking about those. And then my other category is called How to Slip on an Icy Road, in which we will be just talking about the meeting scene in general, but also, the way that kind of can go. I might even see if I could insert a clip here of the kind of classic like cartoon character slipping on a banana peel sound effect.
Nice.
So that might accompany that as well. Here's my impression. It's like whoop, 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 bong. Like a little slippy sound and then you fall. Yeah.
Used for the non-patrons, just cut that sound out and put it with the other thing. It'll be perfect.
Oh my gosh. Lillian, what categories did you come up with today?
I came up with 2 categories. One is very much the Razzie kind of category that you have, which is most roastable moment. Which is just, we've watched a lot of deep cut adaptations, guys, and sometimes they make a choice and it's bold and it's bad, but in the funniest possible way. So I have the most, for almost all of these, I have honorable mentions. I have the most honorable mentions for roastable moments.
Amazing.
Because as I sat and thought about it, too many.
So many good times. I'm very excited for that one.
The other one that I have is best non-traditional adaptation. So one that adapted the story in a really different way or took inspiration from the characters or different things and did something really different. So pretty off-book retelling.
Love it.
Those are the other 2. And then we're going to do our like final grand moment will be our top 5 adaptions of these 37 we've done. What are the top 5? And that was surprisingly difficult to narrow it down to my favorite 5.
And Lillian, how many are you going to put many of these kind of ranking options on social for people to kind of weigh in with their favorites as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm going to pit you guys against each other and make you fight. It's how we get engagement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, the Kmart parking lot is waiting. So, okay, so we decided that we're going to go through these. We're going to do a good old rock, paper, scissors on air. Because again, we're recording so you guys can see, so you know that we're not cheating. And then whoever wins the rock, paper, scissors, they get to pick a category they want to talk about first.
Nice.
Okay, so we're going to go on 3?
Sure.
Okay, ready? 1,
rock,
2,
paper,
3.
Oh.
You looked at mine first. Also,
there's a delay. It's not my fault there's a delay. And also, you counted to 3, and I usually do rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So
Sorry.
you just did a bad job, but I did win. We'll do it better next time.
Oh my God. I also, like, as I was going, it was like slow motion in my head because I was like, wait a second. The last time we did this, I made a statement that I said Lillian did the same thing every single time, but which one did she do? I can't remember. Was it rock? Was it paper? Was it scissors? And I'm like, I'm just going to do a rock because I think maybe it was a sizz and I can crush it. And then I did a paper. And so I don't know what happened. Freaked out.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. What category are we talking about first, Lillian?
Let's do, I think, most roastable moment
Awesome.
Just is like such a lovely place to start.
Cool.
Because it's ones we don't usually talk about when we're talking about the best of things. So I'm going to make you go first because I have so many honorable mentions and I don't want to scoop you.
Okay. Oh my God. So I wrote down 3.
Okay.
I think my number 1 most roastable moment is one that we've chuckled about many a time, which is Charlton Heston going face down on a staircase after Jane runs away, and he's just laying there waiting for them to say cut, and they don't say cut, so they just hold on his sad little body. So that gets my number 1 most roastable moment.
It's so good. It's so funny. It's the funniest thing. I die every single time I see it. I include it in as much of our social as we possibly can. We have, so on our YouTube, you know how they have that thing at the end that's like, thanks for watching. And then there's other videos you can watch.
Mm-hmm.
Ours, I used to make individual ones every time I put up a video for each adaptation. It was too much work. So I made a generic one that has 6 different clips.
Mm-hmm.
5 of them are like some of my favorite Jane Eyre moments for like the quality of it. Actually, I like 4 of them are. One is little Jane attacking her cousin when she jumps out of the window. She fully launches herself out of the window in 2011. Very good. And then the other one is the Charlton Heston moment, because I want to watch that every day for the rest of my life.
Incredible.
It's
oh my gosh.
The funniest thing. He like has a meltdown on the stairs. She walks away from him. It's great because he doesn't fall onto the stairs.
Yeah.
He sort of just melts.
And just stays there. It's so good.
And just stays there. The camera zooms out and you think this is going to be over, right? And he doesn't move. He's just there. I think he's still there. I don't think he had a film career. I think that man is still on those stairs.
That's incredible. I was just thinking to myself, I was like, I feel like we should also try and come up with like awards apart from just like, I mean, you got the best roastable moment award, but what does that statue look like? I think it's like a roast, like chicken on a spit. So a golden roast chicken on a spit will be delivered to the still living ancestors of Charlton Heston.
He's definitely dead, right?
Oh yeah, he's totally dead. If you're alive, sorry for thinking you're dead. Mr.
It's sort of like congratulations for being so old. 2008 he died.
All right.
The same year as his wife, who he was married to since 1944.
Aw.
That's
R.I.P. Sweet peas. Well, he's eating a roast chicken in heaven now. My other, I've got 2 other honorable mentions. Since you have a long list, I'm just going to share them now. So number 2 is, I wouldn't call this like a roast, but it just like warmed my heart and I loved it so much. So not roasty, but toasty. So this one goes to... You
have to get a tattoo that says not roasty, but toasty.
But toasty. So this one goes to the Rochester from Sangdale, who, like, after popping his disguise back on, which was a mustache and a beard, his staff doesn't recognize him and they think he's an actual beggar, so they chase him out of his house. And it's like sped up footage, kind of like so they like run him like through the countryside. Incredible. So that was wonderful. I think you need to prepare yourself for my third one, because this is almost a roast to Lillian and to some Rochester fans or Jane Eyre fans. My other best roastable moment is Michael Jaston's stupid face, because I hate his dumb smirk that he has throughout his entire super long miniseries. It's why I can't get into him. I hate his face. I want to punch it.
Piper, you have to be careful. This episode last year was how you ended up doing a whole episode on Michael Jaston's whole face and deal and everything.
Well, it's not going to happen again. I'm protesting.
That's so funny. I can't believe that was in your roastable moments.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, like, what's something that makes me laugh? And I'm like, that guy's dumb face. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I don't care if it makes people mad.
I like that it's just Michael Jaston's face and not literally a man you say shark face every time we mention him with Michael Fassbender.
Oh, totally. Well, no, I mean, he's still, like, attractive and I can look past the sharkness every now and then. But Michael Jaston's on screen with those big mutton chops and his, like, silly pompous hair. And I'm like, I can't.
Solo opinion of Piper's. This is just not me. An Airbud's opinion. This is a solo opinion of Piper's.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so who are you giving the gilded roasted chicken on a spit to,
Charlton Heston on
the
stairs.
He's leaving with 2. He can give 1 to his ghost wife.
Oh, they're going to share roasted chickens.
That's so nice.
But you cannot beat it. I have another literally 10 on here, and you can't beat that moment.
Yes.
I have a few on here. So one I will say that I'm adding now, as we talked about Michael Jason's face. I wouldn't say Michael Jason's face, but I would say the costumes, specifically in the 1973 when they are like woken up because of Mason's attack.
Oh my gosh.
Costumes of the like visitors, hilarious. It's 1973. That is what like they are overly dressed for like in pajamas in 1973. There's a man with a full sleeping hat for no reason, and the rest of them look like they're from 1973, and it's so funny to me.
Love it.
The other moments that I have 3 more from the 1949, which is the seduction moment when they're having the conversation by the fire, and Charlton Heston like puts his leg up on the couch next to her and just kind of like sticks his crotch in her face and is like, look at this, is this working for you? It's not for me.
No, it's
not
good attempt. Try, Charlie.
Charlie. Bertha just running around in that, lighting shit on fire. Chef's kiss all over. Perfect. Love it so much. Then the Jane's face at the wedding where she just goes, like fully loses her mind. All other Janes are like so stoic. This Jane was like, no, I think I'm going to freak out in a really big way.
I loved it. That was the other one that was going to be on my list. But I figured you'd probably mention it. So
Then the 1952 has another one that's great. So Bertha's running around lighting stuff on fire in that one as well. Rochester falls off his horse, like off screen, in a way that we hear a lot. And then he just sort of stumbles into his own backyard. And I just find that very funny. Then the 1934 has a lot of roastable moments. The moment where Jane breaks a vase, the moment where Adele falls when she's just skipping down a path. Then the last and arguably tied for most roastable movie with the 49 is the 57, where we have Bertha's super long chains for no reason. Mason falling down the stairs in the middle of a party, and Rochester being like, don't even worry about it, guys. This man was just attacked by nothing upstairs that nobody should worry about. Keep dancing.
It's amazing.
And then the final one that I have on here is in that one, Rochester fully doesn't have a horse, but he also doesn't stumble into his own backyard. So she just helps him all the way home. So he falls off the horse. The horse vanishes. We never see it. We just hear it. And then she helps him all the way back to his house. And we're meant to believe it's sort of a long way. And it's funny.
At that point, that adds a whole other layer to, it kind of puts a bit of a damper on the romantic kind of sudden meeting. Because now you're just sweaty and exhausted and you're like, God, I bet I smell and I'm tired of this guy asking weird questions and all kinds of stuff. So real quick, did you ever see the movie Young Frankenstein?
I did. I watched it every week for 7 years because it was Patrick's favorite movie.
Oh my God. Okay. So the same energy from, you said it was the 57 where he's a drunk guy on the stairs. The same energy as him like telling the party goers to keep on just like dancing and stuff is like when Frankenstein and the monster are doing their show and it's really great, but it's interrupted when like a thing bursts into flames and the monster freaks out and he stamps on it and he's like, it's nothing, I tell you. And he tries to keep going back into the dance and everyone's like, mood killed, guy. Like, just drop it.
Perfect. I love it. Absolutely.
So the golden chicken on a spit for best roastable moment goes to Charlie Heston, our boy on the stairs.
Handily to Charlie.
Love it. Okay, my turn to pick one?
Yes.
I think I want to dive into So You Think You Can Drag, talking about our best fortune teller scenes. This is a moment that was in the very first adaptation that I saw in the good old 83. I was shocked when I didn't see it in every version after that. I'm like, oh my God, you cowards. You didn't think we could fall in love with a man who pretends to be an elderly woman of a different race because he's bored and doesn't know how to talk to his girlfriend? Like, come on, guys.
He doesn't know how to talk to his girlfriend.
Get on it, everybody.
That's a new headcanon that, like, from the moment the flaming bed scene happens, Rochester in his head calls Jane his girlfriend.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, look, it's my girlfriend. But he doesn't say it out loud because he can't, but he does think of it that way.
Amazing. So for you have to go first for this category.
Okay.
I am decreeing. So
I do have some honorable mentions, which I'm going to save away like a little squirrel.
Okay.
This was tough.
Yeah.
Because you got to balance the humor of the moment, but not, the racism of its origin story. So my favorite fortune teller moment was the Yavapai. Yavapai?
Yavapai?
Yavapai? Musical. I think they nailed it. And also, you kind of can't beat the moment that you and I had, like the joy that we experienced in that theater, turning to each other and clutching hands as we realize that they are going to, in fact, do the fortune teller scene, and just being in a room full of people who you're like, you might not know. You might
What's
not
coming?
know that is Rochester.
Yes.
And to be like, how's he going to disguise his voice? Nailed it. 10 out of 10. Nailed the voice, nailed the disguise, nailed the review. The energy of the room was palpable. It was perfect.
So good. So just to give a specific name to that is Jacob Erickson from the Yavapai production. Well done. We praised you immensely when we did that episode, that he transitioned beautifully from the high fortune teller's voice into the man voice that he normally was doing. So he did that great. The costume was fun. The reveal was great. I agree. I also, when talking about that one, I was like, it's about being there in person that made it so fun. And I think also the fact that in the musical version, it then goes immediately from him revealing himself to proposing. Just like, well, now that you know my big secret,
I've actually been a fortune teller doing this bit across the country. This was not just to trick you. This is my side hustle.
Dude. Okay, this makes me think of this movie was up for one of our potential palate cleansers. It was the BBC Shakespeare retold version of Taming of the Shrew, which when I saw it and became obsessed with it years ago, I made Lillian watch it, and as the beautiful saint that she is, she did. So I'm not sure if you actually remember this movie.
I vaguely remembered it when you sent me the screenshot to use for the poll. I was like, I feel like I've seen this, but that's not possible.
So one of the greatest things about it is that Rufus Sewell plays Petruchio in that. And apart from all the other classic stuff that you may know about the story of Taming of the Shrew, one of the big things that he does that is like this great comical moment is that on the day of their wedding beforehand, it seems as if he's got second thoughts, and he's like, I can't do this. I can't marry her this way. And his friend's like, well, I don't blame you. She's awful. And that's totally fine. He's like, no, I'm in love with her and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with her, but she needs to know something about me. And it's the fact that he likes to cross-dress. So he comes late to the wedding, drunk, and in this costume where he's wearing like this floral blouse, this skirt, this fishnet stockings, these heels, makeup, and painted nails. And it's like this whole great moment. And I wish Rochester had that too, to be like, look, Jane, I don't know if you could pick up on it, but I'm a big theater kid and I think I'm going to wear the dress to the wedding. I hope that's okay. And she's like, baby, it's fine.
Incredible. I love that. I love that for them. That would be so good.
What are your honorable mentions?
Was that also your number one?
Yes, spoiler alert. I also chose Yavapai and Jacob Erickson.
There we go.
Yay, got it. So yes, for him, what should the trophy be for this?
I feel like one of the little balls, the fortune teller crystal ball.
A crystal ball, but how about it's like a magic 8-ball sitting on a pedestal for a crystal ball?
That's perfect.
Yay!
I didn't know that that's what my soul wanted, because that is exactly what Rochester does. Rochester, to do a good fortune teller scene, you have to capture the energy of a magic 8-ball on a stand. Really ornate stand, but that's a magic 8-ball.
So good.
I love it.
Okay.
My honorable mentions are not going to surprise you. I'm shocked you didn't pick the 83. because Dalton does do a pretty decent job at it. He's also the only one of the BBC TV shows to bravely, or I can't remember if Jason does the full dress up. I think he might.
I don't remember either.
I know Stevens chickened out and had some other lady pretend to be it, which is like,
and then
the only criticisms that I have of him, please don't come after me.
And Sharkman didn't even try.
Everything else that he's done, they just fully don't have one in there, right?
Yeah, they don't have one.
Yeah,
that scene is just cut out.
I'm gonna have to rearrange my top 5. So that the other one that is just like so incredibly unexpected and just buck wild that it's there is the 50s radio adaptation with Vincent Price and his incredible voice, and just the unnecessary 20% of that radio program they gave to this.
It's amazing.
It's so wild.
So you and I promise it's not because I looked briefly into that document, but you and I had the exact same thing. So I also gave it to Yavapai for number 1, and my runners-up were also Vincent Price and Timmy D. One thing I thought about including, I mean, I guess I could mention it now. I love the manga having that scene in there. And like I said on that episode, how he gets caught in the costume, it's tangled in his hair and he needs help getting out of it. One thing that I adore about the Timothy Dalton one is a line that he delivers when he reveals his truth. He goes, "Off ye lendings," as he throws his costume to the ground. And I'm just like, oh, this is why I'm in love with you, you psycho.
I will say, I think Timothy Dalton captures Rochester's theater boyness better than any of the other Rochesters. I will give him that for sure.
Agreed.
That's not to say that Toby Stevens isn't also a theater boy or any of these other boys. I believe they're all theater boys. But Dalton just really leans into that. He does the full charade scene. Just all of it. I will also say, you reminded me when you were talking about Singdil, that's a great scene also. They don't quite do drag though, so it doesn't really count.
Right.
He dresses like a man.
Whatever. Okay, so yes, Yavapai is walking away with the Magic 8 Ball on a gilded stand for the So You Think You Can Drag award. Well done. Well done. Lillian, what category are we turning to next?
Well, do we want to just do, I'm kind of leaning towards, let's do the How to Slip on Ice, because then we can do non-traditional adaptation and then talk about all adaptations. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds great to me. Let's do it.
Great. I hope it also sounds good to you, lovely listeners. But unfortunately, your voices don't travel back in time.
Darn.
But so I think we should do How to Slip on Ice. You go first.
Okay. So I don't know if this will surprise you at all, but I am choosing the scene portrayed by William Hurt in the 96.
My God.
Is that also yours?
This is uncanny.
I swear I did look at your answers, I promise.
I don't believe you.
No, I didn't. And I'm choosing him. I don't know about you, but I'm giving him the Banana Peel award because that scene, I think when we talked about it when we did that episode, I think it really accurately captures kind of the vibe that I get from reading the novel. I don't like it as like an angry moment. Sorry, Kieran Hines, you failed horribly.
Kieran, I fully forgot. I'm just like, who the fuck is Kieran?
Who's that, Syrian? The guy we've been mispronouncing his name.
I fully asked my brothers about it. I like showed them the name and they both were like, probably Kieran. And I'm like, actually, you guys suck.
It's like, you're not allowed to listen to our podcast anymore, okay?
No, I've been begging them to listen to the podcast. They don't.
Amazing.
The only sibling of mine that listens is my sister-in-law. Hi, Holly.
Yay, hi, Holly. So no, I feel like it has the kind of vibe, both like visually of, I like the way that we see the road and the moors portrayed. And then also I think it has a softness to it that I really like for their first time meeting, because as much as I like a, kind of like somewhat gruff, standoffish, embarrassed Rochester, I think the way that William Hurt does that scene, it's so tender and it can really make you feel or see why Jane with that being their first meeting, would have a crush on this guy, even though he's like, you know, a not great looking 40 something or whatever. But you're like, no, this guy is very sweet and I want to know more about him. And he just seems genuinely curious about her, and then also just very like charmed by her in his softness. So yes, I'm giving the gilded banana peel How to Slip on an Icy Road to William Hurt.
I also am doing that. You little copier. But my main reason for it is I think it was the first one we saw, and it has stuck in my mind that, as you said, like I watched it and I was like, well, this is not how the scene goes, but it's cool that you made that choice. And then we read it and I was like, so it is how the scene goes. And it's weird that everyone else didn't make that choice, because I think the biggest difference for me is the fact that he rides past her and then falls off. And I, like you said, I think he balances that gruffness really well. I think they do a good job of setting the mood beforehand, where it kind of feels a little spooky and she's out in nature and all this other stuff is happening. I did watch about 3 or 4 of these in preparation for this to be like, well, does this do it? Does that do it? Sometimes they're wild. Sometimes they make choices that are weird, like playing really intense moment over the world's cutest music over the world's cutest dog running through fog. And you're like, that's not spooky. That's just a really cute dog running into, like, I don't think you understand what's happening right now. And then I also don't like it when the horse almost hits her because she's walking into the horse.
Right. I feel like the best example of that is Kieran Hines, like coming across the river and the horse like rears up and he practically like tramples her and kicks her in the face with the horse. So yeah. And
Which,
then of course
that's one where they keep like, to try to make it dramatic, they keep cutting between like Jane and Pilot and the horse. And it's like, what's happening? And the horse does look sort of like spooky because you can't really see the person on it and you can't quite, like, you can't get the whole horse in, but the dog is just there being like, hey guys, how are you? I'm just a dog. And it's like, no, what are you doing? I don't understand. The music does not fit. And why are these fast cuts happening? And why is Jane suddenly terrified in these woods? She can't hear the music.
Refresh my memory, because we have not rewatched this one since the original watching. Does he actually fall off, or does the horse just rear and then he sits up there on the horse being angry?
I cut after I realized I wasn't going to pick it.
Okay. Because I in my brain, I feel as if Kieran stays on the horse, but maybe he falls into the water. I'm not sure.
I think he falls.
Okay.
I don't know that he leans on her quite as much. I will say, if we're just going for best lean, it's Timothy Dalton and Zela Clark.
That is in my runner-ups, because it's a very different tone. It's much more kind of like the spooky intensity, and I think it's got a bit more kind of like sexual tension than like romantic like intrigue. But again, if I may do a quote of Timmy's performance from that, when, you know, she's like, oh, you are okay or whatever, he's like, it's nothing broken, and he goes, it's just a sprain. Like, it's like the way he says sprain is like, oh my god, dude, stop trying to seduce this lady that you almost killed with a horse.
I feel like if Timothy Dalton sat like peak 80s Timothy Dalton read recipes, you would be like, this is too sexual, sir.
I know. I wouldn't last. So good.
My honorable mentions that I had, and it's actually reminding me of another thing that I feel is really important in that scene, is that Jane is saving Rochester.
Yes.
Jane is saving Rochester. That matters. And like, he couldn't get out of this situation without her. And in watching the 2 other honorable mentions that I have, one is the Italian one. Because I love that horse just goes on a journey afterwards.
Yeah.
My headcanon will always be that. So it's like, is it the first scene? I feel like it's the first scene and they do a flashback to her childhood.
I think so, yeah.
And they meet on the road. Rochester, he rides past. Rochester falls. Jane comes running after him. They don't pretend Jane is ugly. They're just like, damn, this hot angel has come to save you. And the horse goes and does its own thing in a field. It is just having a time over there. And then these guys are having a conversation over here. And they keep cutting back to the horse just tromping around in a field. And it makes me really happy for that horse.
It's very sweet. I like both with what you were saying earlier about the dogs being just like not spooky and just being dogs and being happy. It's one of my favorite facts is that oftentimes like dogs in current films where they have the technology for this, if it's supposed to be like a scary like intense scene, they have to CGI their tails to not wag because the dogs on set are just so happy to be doing their jobs well that their tails are just wagging like crazy, and so they have to CGI the tail to not be like happy because it makes the audience be like, oh, that's a nice puppy.
That makes me really happy. Oh,
Yay!
dogs.
Dogs with jobs.
I have one more honorable mention, which is the 1970s one.
Okay.
I really like that one. The way that she's like walking up the hill and then she sort of like looks off at the sunset. And if you don't know what's coming, they do a really good job of making the hoofbeats sort of like meld with the music. And then as they get louder, it starts to sound like her heartbeat.
Oh, cool.
And she's got a really good look of longing on her face and that very cool sound. And then like there is that moment of like caught off guard as like all of a sudden there's this horse and all this stuff. But he's a little too angry at her specifically. She very clearly was in the road. And he doesn't like, she like grabs the horse and helps him up, and like it's just the rest of it is too rushed for me. But the lead up to it is probably the best.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I also want to throw out one more honorable mention, which is the Odd Socks production of the man in a horse costume and the whole joke about Mountain to Mohammed and that she thinks that's his name. It's just all very good.
So good. So top quality.
Love that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so yes, William Hurt is also leaving with 2 gilded banana peels. I love this.
I want to say, if you have the exact same, because I have a whole caveat on one of these. If you have the exact same answers for non-traditional adaptation, I need our listeners to know Piper didn't prep for this episode. She copied my notes like a little liar.
No, I didn't. I swear. Should we say our top one at the same time?
I'm gonna just make you go first.
Okay.
Because I have
squinty eyes.
I have a top one, and I have a and I have a if you don't think that's really a Jane Eyre adaptation, I have a secondary one.
Okay. So the way that I've got, this is mine with the longest list of honorable mentions because I think there's a lot of very interesting kind of takes. But the one that I am giving this to it's the Odd Socks production, but specifically it is Adele as a Muppet, which is my favorite headcanon, is that if this took place in the Muppet universe, she's a Muppet and Miss Piggy is obviously Celine. And so Adele as a Muppet that has to be carried around is the cutest thing ever, and it's my favorite, and this one hands down for me for that choice.
It's so funny because I thought about the Odd Socks production and then went, frankly, it's too traditional. Like, other than the Muppet of it all, it leans into the humor a lot, but the vast majority of that are words from the book. And so I was like, it's really traditional in that way. But I see it. I get it.
Yeah.
I now trust you and believe you that you aren't lying to me and you didn't copy my notes.
Thank you. And what do you think about a trophy for non-traditional adaptations?
It's Jane Eyre, but upside down.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Nice. I love it.
Okay, perfect. So my winner, and then we'll do our honorable mentions. So my first one that I was like, absolutely my winner. I'm not sure it counts as an adaptation of Jane Eyre. It counts in our total count that I have here, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. I said Weissergas OC.
Okay.
Because I really love that different perspective. I love this other envisioning of the characters, but I don't really know that it counts as a production of Jane Eyre.
Yeah, I think we can count that since we're going off of, all of our sort of, it's in the inspired by.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it works.
So then my next one that is, if we had to do true adaptation, but not true to the book, I had Sang Dill. Because I really loved that. And I think they did it was so much fun to watch. It was our first one that we watched that was international.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's looking like it's going to be the only international one we can watch with subtitles, where we, can read the language and know what they're actually saying. But it was like one of my first Bollywood films I've ever seen. It was interesting. It was also the first one that was supposed to be adapted to like a modern day that we watched.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was really good.
That's awesome. Lillian, I'm just now realizing, so we've been saying in a lot of our recent reviews that because we've read the book and we've seen 37 adaptations of this, that we're now getting to the point where when a line is changed just a little bit, we zone in on it and we're like, hang on, like that's not exactly the right way that it's supposed to be. So I think this is actually a great time for us to watch these international versions where we don't have subtitles, because we already know what the words are. So unless they're changing the dialogue significantly, we're going to be able to follow along just fine.
We have 2 more coming up in the next couple of months that we couldn't, one's Spanish and one's Czech.
Cool.
And they're both TV shows. A lot of the international ones are TV shows. One that we agreed not to watch is an 80 episode, like 20 to 30 minute long episodes of another Indian one. I believe it's Bollywood, but it might have been, because there's multiple languages and multiple areas that do production, but certainly from India. And I simply could not.
That's a lot. It's a big commitment.
80 episodes of something in a language I don't speak and just kind of guess. It's a lot of hours. It's 40 hours. There's a full work week.
And speaking of adaptations that took a long time to consume, I think top of my list, just as far as non-traditional adaptations goes, shout out to Autobiography of Jane Eyre, the YouTube series. That I've kind of struggled in the moment going through it, just because I felt overwhelmed by the number of episodes I had to watch in the window of time that I had to watch them. But I've honestly been reflecting back on that a lot, and I've been thinking about a lot of their choices that I really enjoyed. And again, I liked seeing how they brought it into the modern day. I liked some of the little details, such as like the way that they did, like the party was filmed as if like a drunk guy who works in the company is like doing a home video like kind of thing, and like recording all of like this weird stuff. And like the way that they made choices about how to make the situation with Bertha more sympathetic and real and understandable for a modern setting. So many of those choices were really cool. I loved, even though it was very, very loosely inspired, the Voyager episode, just because it brought in a show that is very near and dear to my heart. I actually just finished watching all of Voyager, and it has become my favorite crew for Star Trek. So seeing Captain Catherine Janeway get to explore this kind of feminine side and softer romantic side, where otherwise she needs to be this strong, leader, was very cool. Shout out to the 2 books, Reluctant Immortals and Mr. R, and then all of the comedy sketches that took a classic story and just added some fun twists.
Yeah, those were, you got all my honorable mentions as well in there. The Mr. R, Reluctant Immortals, and Autobiography of Jane Eyre were 3 that I had that are, it's so hard to separate those out from, because they all have their own reason why they're so special to me. Because of this, like getting to talk to Allison was like one of the first moments where I was like, people will actually come on the podcast, and like having Gwendolyn's publishing house reach out to us and be like, as part of her official press tour. I was like, what?
So cool.
Our little podcast. And getting to talk to, and then Mr. R with Tracy, like that conversation was so great. And she was somebody who like we knew of from the Facebook group before, and then to find out she'd written these books and to talk to her about what that experience was like I can't separate the art from the artist in those cases. So I was like, I debated putting a couple of those in first, and I was like, I don't know how I actually feel about them, because I love them so much, and the people involved are so special to me specifically.
Absolutely. So additional thank yous and shout outs to anybody from that list who appeared on our show and graced us with your presence. Thank you.
We adore you.
Okay, so yes, the gilded upside down copy of Jane Eyre goes to one Puppet Adele from the Odd Socks production, and the other one goes to, which one did you say
Wide
again?
Sargasso Sea is
Wide
what we're calling
Sargasso
the
Sea.
official winner.
Awesome. Perfect.
And I just like the distinction between those two things. Because one's a real funny little puppet girl.
And it was a very sad and somber story.
It's maybe the roughest adaptation we've read.
Amazing.
Oh, God, that's funny.
We cover all spectrums.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so of these 37, we now are going to do a top 5.
Do you have yours in an order of 1 through 5? Or do you have...
I have mine in an order. I just have 1 through 5.
Okay, great.
1 being my favorite and 5 being my 5th favorite.
Do we want to switch back and forth starting at the bottom and going to our number 1?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Who's going first?
I don't know. Did I go first? You went first last time, so I'll go first.
Yay. What is your 5th favorite?
My 5th one. So first of all, picking a top 5 was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was truly difficult. And so ultimately, instead of this being like, these are the 5 best adaptions, these are my 5 favorite adaptions.
Same.
So they're ones that are special to me. I have 6 honorable mentions.
Nice.
Because I couldn't. And I also went with true adaptions of Jane Eyre. So ones that I really liked as like a true adaptation. So my first one is actually a very recent one of ours. So number 5 for me is the manga.
Oh, nice.
It was I really loved getting to experience the whole story, getting all of those lines that I love, reading it like this poetry, but with this cool visual representation, and getting to experience this new art style in a story that I really loved was fun.
That's awesome. Hooray for the manga.
Yay.
My number 5 is the 2015 National Theater production.
Nice.
And I chose that even though the Jane and the Rochester in particular were not some of my personal favorites, I was so inspired by the beautiful visual interpretation of the story. I think it was one of the most emotional, like visceral kind of viewing experiences. It's something that would have been incredible to see in person. Just the way they used the stage and the visual storytelling and the singing of Bertha throughout, and interpretations of somewhat modern songs like being used in the narrative, and the actors playing multiple people in the cast and all kinds of things. So that got my number 5 spot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 4 spot is one that we haven't watched in quite some time, but just always sticks in my head as one that I think is underappreciated by Jane Eyre fans, because a lot of Jane Eyre fans have not seen this and don't bring this up. There's other ones that like we just hear about all the time and it's always brought up and it's sort of like always in the mix. But this one was one that I know we both really fell in love with. There's particular moments that I think are some of the best done. And it's the 1971 with George C. Scott and Susanna York.
Yay! Awesome.
Yeah. So that's my number 4.
Hooray! My number 4, shout out to the Toby Stevens army, is the 2006 miniseries. We just did our rewatch of that one not long ago, and it reminded me just how much I just enjoy this. Again, my list is also based on personal preference, not necessarily like, accuracy to like the book. But I think we've often talked about just like how good their chemistry is. It's so easy to fall in love with the two of them. She is easily my favorite Jane. He's not my favorite Rochester, but he's up there. He does a great job. Even though it tames the story down a little bit. I think it gives us all a lot of great moments, and I just love rooting for the two of them. They're some of my favorite swoon-worthy Jane and Rochesters. So 2006.
Yeah, that one is my number 3. So that works out really well. My number 3 is the 2006, and so many similar reasons to you. I actually feel like it's within the spectrum of book accurate, but with like softest Rochester. Like this gives Rochester the benefit of the doubt every time you can give Rochester the benefit of the doubt. Yes. And probably the biggest softening they give him are those flashbacks to Bertha, and the way that he cares for Bertha. That's probably the biggest softening of him that is not accurate to the book. But I really love it. And I really love Ruth Wilson and Toby Stephens both have such a great performance, and there's so many moments that are just like incredible. And then just overall, one of the things that I was thinking about with this is like, which ones would I watch again? Like if we're talking about 10 years from now and I'm going to go back and watch a Jane Eyre, which ones would be on my list to even consider? And the 2006 would be really high on that list because it is so cozy and rewatchable and like just comforting to me, which I love.
Yay. Awesome. I completely agree. And it's funny because my number 3, you and I just did a little flip-flop here. I put down the 1970 movie with George C. Scott. And yeah, speaking of, I think when we do our next kind of rewatch, this is top of my list for me. I'm really excited to go back and see this one again. But a big thing for it is just he has this gentleness that I don't think is present in the original like way that Rochester is written, but he has a gentleness that just like pulls me in, and I'm like, oh my God, I would forgive you every time. Like, you're so sweet. I love him, and I love the way he plays that character. And it like the heart of that movie for me is easily in the reveal scene of Bertha and the stay scene of the like, please just sit a while with me. And I'm like, oh, how could you leave him? So he carries that movie. And I really want to go back and focus in on our Jane's performance because he's like, I have blinders on when I see him in that movie, and I want to go back and pay attention to the other people. So love that. That's number 3.
I think it's interesting to me that we both have those two so close together because they are so similar in like the feeling of it is so similar. And I think if you love the 2006 and you haven't seen the 70, or for whatever reason, vice versa, I think you would really love the 1970 version because there's a couple of moments too that like I just like the way the choices they make to shorten it. Like they have the moment after Mason is when they're out in the garden and he's like asking about like, what would you do? Like if you had made an error, not a crime, an error. And they do the whole scene and she's like really upset and talking about Blanche. She goes, Blanche, I don't like that girl. I'm going to marry you. And just like cutting the suspense early and just having them get engaged. It feels like that's when Rochester needed to do it. And I sort of like the choice. If you're not going to have her go back and see Aunt Reed, this is the time to do it.
Totally. No, I completely agree. That one did it right. So I really hope we do a rewatch of that soon because I'm excited about it.
Okay, good.
And then, okay, number 2. My number 2 is, and this, it's partially because it's most recent, and it might technically be, I'd have to like do a re-listen to really give this an accurate thing. It had potential for the number 1 slot, but my number 2 is the 2006 BBC radio drama.
2016.
Yes, 2016 radio drama that we just did an episode on. Tom Burke's performance was beautiful. I'm obsessed with that. I can't think of the woman's name off the top of my head. Oh wait, I think I wrote it down when I thought we were doing different categories.
Amanda Hale.
Amanda Hale. Yeah. 10 out of 10. I really liked so much of what they did with that one. So that's my number 2 right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
My number 2 and my number 1, I feel like are technically tied, but I had to pick one because I made a game that I have to play for myself on a podcast that we have. So I made me do this and now I'm mad. But my number 2 is the 2011 with Mia and Fassbender.
Yeah.
Good. One first name, one last name, whatever. Mia and Michael. There we go.
Mia and Michael.
And
M&M's.
I just think like that for me is, again, I could watch it over and over again. I think it's so well done. I think the tone strikes so similarly to the tone I feel the book has. I think the choices they make to be kind of new and different are choices that I like having her start by being found. Like they combine the St. John and childhood in a way that makes me hate my 2 least favorite parts of the book less. And gives a really interesting context so we can have that conclusion of them coming back together right after they're separated. Like, I think the choices and pacing that is really interesting and really, really well done. I also am just like blown away by Mia's performance every single time. I personally have no problem with a shark face. And I just think they like they have some of my favorite things, like the scenes, like their proposal scenes, still my favorite. That was something we talked about last time. So many of those moments are just like incredibly done. And I also think it's probably the thing I would point someone to if they weren't going to read the book, but they wanted to know what Jane Eyre was about, I would point them to that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's your number 2? You're number 1 now.
Yeah, I'm up to number 1 slot. So Lillian, do you want to guess what my favorite adaptation of Jane Eyre ever is?
Now that I've heard these other ones, I cannot imagine what your number 1 could be.
I wonder, maybe it's the same thing that made me obsessed with this in the first place, that I can't stop thinking about no matter what. It's the 1983 miniseries, with Timothy Dalton, obviously.
Of course it is.
No surprises there. And I don't know. It's because of him. It's the Rochester movie. Okay, so it is one of the most faithful adaptations, I think. So often, like when I read the novel, I would think of that miniseries because it does things so like true to the original work. Timmy D is just giving it his frickin' all, and I'm there for it. Like, it's his time to be as dramatic as he wants. We talked earlier about like him doing the best theater boy, and I feel like maybe if we didn't see this one first, we wouldn't see Rochester as much of a theater kid as we do, but that is now canon in my brain because of that performance. I like Jane. I think we've agreed that she's not as strong or as compelling as other Janes. So she's not as big a part of it, which is like a big fault of a Jane Eyre, that Jane isn't the best part of it. But what can I say? I'm a fangirl. I stick to my obsessions, and I'm here to stan that Timmy D with his Rochester-ness.
If
so.
it had been anything else, I would have called you a liar to your face on the podcast.
No, I'm honest. I know what's right.
I think that's great. The only reason I didn't make it on the list for me, I do think that Timothy Dalton would make it in my top Rochesters, but the balance is so off in that. Yeah. And the childhood is so long, and the St. John of it all is so long. Yes. And I hate that.
That's why, Lillian, I've got the scenes with just Rochester bookmarked on YouTube, and I can pop right in and avoid the rest.
So good. Perfect.
What gets your number 1?
I think you may actually be surprised by this. I don't know. But you already mentioned it. It's the National Theater production.
I thought it might be that one.
It's, for me, I can't, again, like, it's so hard to separate our experience with it from like what the actual thing is. But the more I reflect on it, like, I have told more people to watch the National Theater one than anything else.
It's beautiful.
I don't think people have seen it. It's also so, like I mentioned when we were talking about some of the book stuff, like the way that set is sort of stripped down, and it's really the characters and the words and the story that is what we're seeing. Like, I think that's so well done. Bertha in that, like, changes the game. Like, the way she haunts that stage is incredible. Her singing is like next level. The set is gorgeous. The way that they used lighting to change this very stagnant set to feel like different places, and the way they captured the feeling of that. And then I also think the way that these actors, they didn't worry about how they looked. They worried about how they made you feel. And I love that. Yeah. So I thought it was really, really good. The actress who played Jane killed it. The actor who played Rochester did a really great job. The actor who played Pilot did a great job. Like, I just think all in all, like, it was a truly an incredible adaptation of Jane Eyre.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. I would have killed to see that in person.
Seriously. I think one of the most visceral scenes of that version that stands out to me, that like whenever I think of it, is when it's the part where she is supposed to be, you know, kind of starting to get like, she's happy at Thornfield, but she's longing for more. And it's when the other actors help to form the window panes, and she pushes it open, and it's just like whoosh, and it's like the wind like blows at her. And it's just amazing because they don't even have like a fan or anything. It's literally done with her acting, the music, and the lighting to be like, this is the outside world, something more calling to me. And it's amazing that they can do that with the limited things that they had. I loved it.
I think another example of that same thing that they do such a great job with is the moments where you see them. It's a similar mechanism where she takes a lesson she learned as a childhood and then like repeats it over and over again. And that's her getting bored at Lowood.
Mm-hmm.
When she's at Thornfield before Rochester gets there, when they're doing the sewing, it's embroidery.
Mm-hmm.
And her and Adele and Mrs. Fairfax are just switching spaces to show time passing.
Yeah.
They just go in this circle and there's this monotony, and because they have this previous version where you see her losing that, they're replicating that same feeling that she's getting of boredom at Thornfield without Rochester. And it's like the level of understanding, it's something we talked about a lot with some of these different productions where it's like, you can tell when someone understands and loves this book.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that in the National Theater production. It's so well done.
100%. So guys, like we said before, Lillian's going to put some of these categories up on social because we want to hear what your top 5 are and why. We'd love to know who you would include when it comes to So You Think You Can Drag, Best Fortune Teller Scene, How to Slip on an Icy Road, Banana Peel, non-traditional adaptations, what decisions they made that were different from the works that you said, you know what, I don't hate that, it's kind of cool, and best roastable moments, because we love to laugh at something that we adore. It's the best sign of affection. So tell us what you think those are in your opinion, the ones that we didn't mention, or if you just want to reaffirm our choices because you love us and you think we're right.
And if you're sitting there screaming, going, you didn't mention my favorite one, I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. I do have some honorable mentions for my top 5, which I know is cheating, but I don't care. Yavapai, I can't put you in there because I can't separate at all my incredible experience from the actual production. And I wouldn't put the musical, the 2000, is it 2000 that musical came out?
Something
I wouldn't
like that.
put the Broadway musical in there. I would just put my experience with your production in there.
There we go.
Odd Socks is another one where I'm like, I love you. You're not one of my top 5, but I love you.
Yes.
The ballet I almost put in there, but I feel like it's cheating because I haven't actually seen it.
We can only get certain clips. It's incomplete in our brains.
Yeah. Then I have ones that we've talked about already, which is Reluctant Immortals, Will Always Be So Special to Me, Autobiography of Jane Eyre, and then Sang Dill are 3 that just, they're special for special reasons, but they're not my top 5, and I'm sorry.
Totes. Also, to the one with Orson Welles, another one high on my list that I want to revisit because I remember it being so visually cool, and I want to check that out again.
43 with Orson Welles, and there's so many, there's at least 2 actresses that's named Joanna, and then they have not Joanna, Joan,
probably
Joan, but I don't know their last name, so Joan something. She was in it too.
Nice. If you guys, so the people who already give us $3 and change in the mail every month, we love you guys. You've been seeing our beautiful faces this whole time. If you want to also join in on the visual crowd and get to see our smiling gobs and our over exaggerated gestures, $3 a month will do it. We also have access to fun quizzes. We've got behind the scenes stuff from like our trips and just when we get together to like watch things and review things. We've got art, work in progress sketches. We've got some fun videos coming up. Lillian does special video edits of full things. It's a lot of hard work and it's worth seeing. And also we're putting together, I think I might have mentioned this last time, but we thought it would be fun to create playlists that are inspired by both Rochester and Jane. I have most of my Rochester playlist all queued up. It's very
so excited for this, you guys.
Oh, it's very moody boy, like romantic intensity songs. And I'm actually going to be recording a special kind of like public radio jazz special where I get to walk you through my choices. And so you don't want to miss that. It'll be available through Patreon. So join us there, please.
Perfect. If you feel our top 5s are wrong, And or want to send your top 5 Jane Eyre adaptations, and you don't want it to be public because you're not out here trying to start a fight. You have no interest in going to a Kmart parking lot, but you do want us to know. A great way to do that is via email. You can email us at airbuds@gmail.com. Piper's already mentioned the amazing Patreon. We understand that's not for everyone, but you know what is for everyone? Reviews. Give us 5 stars, please. And also, if it's on Apple, you can write like a couple sentences, and like not a lot of people do that. So we're particularly grateful for the people who did. And if you want our unending gratitude, it's purchasable, it's earnable via reviews.
Absolutely. So, guys, this has been a total blast. Thank you for joining us for our Razzies of Jane Eyre episode. I think next week we're talking about the Spanish miniseries. Nope. Is that correct?
Next week I need my palate cleansed.
Ooh, yummy. Num.
Piper just says things, and you're on a podcast with her, and you have to pretend that's like a normal way that people do stuff. Like say yummy, num 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 num
num num num num. Sounds good.
And it's gonna be real queer.
Yay!
And I was gonna put up the quiz, the whole thing last week, but I didn't yet. So I may have already done it by the time you're hearing it, or it might be this week. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, follow us on social media.
Awesome.
Me of the past and me of the future are not the same person. And you don't get to hear me of the present because this isn't live.
I do. I get to hear you as the present. I'm the lucky one.
Yeah. And if you join our Patreon, maybe there'll be opportunities to hear the me of the present then. There is a small chance, which I'm only mentioning because we won't know until later this week. I have some family things going on, so there's a chance we may end up pushing that 1 week. So if we do, we appreciate your understanding. And it's not that we don't love you. It's that we are actually human beings who exist in the world. And sometimes things happen.
Absolutely. So keep your eye out for that poll. It's going to be all same-sex love from the days of before our times.
All lady love, because that's what I want.
Oh, it's all lady love! Yay! So help us decide which one we're going to consume, and we will see you next time on Airbuds. So until then, happy Jane Eyre reading, watching, and reviewing. Bye, guys.
Bye.